Jacob Sanderson, Billy Milestone, and your host Thomas Tipple. Dynasty Podcast. This is the Full Tilt. 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 Dynasty Podcast. Jacob Sanderson, Billy Milestone, and your host Thomas Tipple. This is the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast.
Hello. I am sadly not Thomas Tipple, of course. I don't even have a Thomas Tipple impression to do today like I do for Billy, but I am your temporary host today. I'm Jacob Sanderson. I am joined, as always, every Friday by Big Billy FF. Billy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. I'm ready for a Ravens-less episode. I love Tom, but when he's away, we're going to have a good time. Sadly, we mock draft last week, so we can't do our usual no Tom. That means you and me do a mock, but nah.
Yeah, for our longtime listeners, and I can't even say viewers because we didn't have viewers back then. It was only listeners.
We were just
whenever
Skype.
Tom at that point would miss an episode of the FTDP, usually we would do a mock draft, and usually we'd say, Tom, it'll be an hour. And then it would be like 3 hours. We'd have to break it far to part two. So that's usually how it would go. I don't crack the whip when I'm in the host's chair, or in this case, the host's exercise ball, as much as my main man Tom. But just for anyone that doesn't know, Tom Tipple, he's not Cole Beasley. He got his second shot today, so therefore he is resting. He is getting well, but he is all good in the hood. So me and Billy are here with you today, and this is our going camping episode. That means it's time for us to go out into the wilderness, to pitch our tents, to plant our tent posts on the stories that we do care about, the stories that we don't care about, and most of all, to get you ready for the minefield of training camp, because there are so many different reactions coming out of training camp, all these different beat reports, all these different signals. You need to know what's just noise, what should you ignore versus what is actually important. But before we get into all of that, we've got to get into something a little bit sadder, especially for me as a Colts fan or someone that's personally very invested in the redemption season 2021 of my main man Carson Wentz. All day long, we've seen a variety of different updates from Schefter, from Rappaport, from Garofalo, from whoever the heck else.
Some random doctor on Reddit who's...
Yeah, a lot of people on Twitter are like, well, I heard a pop, so that means this. Yeah, so we've been hearing about Carson Wentz. Here's the dealio. Carson Wentz, at the end of yesterday's practice, he gets hurt. He said he felt a twinge. They took him for testing today. It seems like what they have found out so far is that there is ligament damage and there is bone damage. It has been not ruled out, at least, but it sounds like they're quite confident it is not a Lisfranc injury.
Yeah.
That would be the worst case scenario. That'd be the season ending. It sounds like that's been avoided. However, they're going to see a foot specialist. The scans are being reviewed, and it sounds like we're looking at something between out for the rest of the preseason and maybe out for a few weeks into the regular season. What do you make of all this? How are you reacting?
So I'm kind of keeping it pretty... My working situation right now is he's out for the preseason. I think that's kind of the median case scenario. We could be sitting in a situation where he's coming back mid-season, or we could be in a situation where he's back next week. I think the kind of median, most probable situation is he's looking to be out for the rest of the preseason. And in a lot of situations, if we had a returning quarterback, I'd be completely fine with that. The thing that worries me about Carson Wentz is he's already a new quarterback in a new scheme with new targets that he is not familiar with. And also, it's not like he's going into a scheme with Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams, where they have this completely alpha wide receiver who he can feed the ball to, and they know they're going to have that option. He doesn't have that choice. So it worries me a lot for if he's coming out preseason. I'm going to meter my takes in Dynasty, but right now my feelings are if he's missing the preseason, if I'm in a redraft league, I'm not taking Carson Wentz as a streamer or as a late round quarterback. I'm definitely looking to grab like Kirk Cousins or someone there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Even in Superflex, look, Carson Wentz, I love the guy. And in Dynasty, it's a very different story. I mean, in Dynasty, I don't even think this matters like that much in Dynasty from like a value perspective, whatever. So maybe he'll miss a few games, maybe miss a bunch of games. This isn't putting his job in jeopardy, unless it comes out that in fact is a list Frank, he's going to miss the whole season. Then we'll go through this again. But if he's just missing a few games, not a huge hit to his Dynasty value. If you can go and trade for him on the cheap or whatever, by all means, go and check in with the manager.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're in a Superflex redraft league, like you're drafting Carson Wentz as a QB2 at this point. And I don't think he has all that much upside with a lack of weapons and a run-first offense. So just bypass the situation. Like there's plenty of other guys you could get that are probably 95% as good as what you thought Carson Wentz would be. There's no reason to take on that risk for what's really not a whole lot of reward. Luke Fear in the chat. What up, Luke Fear? He says, looks like Indy won't be sending Philly there first. That's an interesting thing here. If Carson Wentz has to play, I believe it is 11 games or 12 games for that first to convey. So if there is a surgery option where he missed a few games at the beginning of the season, but then they know they can get him right, it might even be the Colts' interest. But what I know, I root for the Colts. I'm not in Indianapolis, but I'm up with their beat reporters constantly. What I know about their front office is they could not care less right now about the conditions on the deal with Philly. Thank you, Sam. We got our Eagles fan in the chat. He knows exactly what's up. What I can tell you is that Chris Ballard's goal is to make the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. That's his goal. So there's no way that they're going to sandbag this situation and keep Carson Wentz out for weeks that he could play so they don't have to convey a first. When they made that deal, they made that with the mindset of we just traded a first-round pick for Carson Wentz, and they were okay with that. That's the
way you have to do those deals too.
Yeah, like if he's hurt and they end up only losing the second-round pick, like I'm sure that they'll take some solace in that. But there is nobody in the Colts front office who's going around fist pumping today because they don't have to lose their first. Like they want Carson Wentz healthy. They want him playing. As soon as he's healthy to play, he will play. Let me ask you this. If you're in a Superflex Dynasty or in a redraft and you've already drafted because you're a total sicko, and you have Carson Wentz, or you don't, who are you going to be actually looking for as a possible replacement? Or you're the Colts. Like, who do you think is taking the week one snap if it's not Carson Wentz? What are the options out there?
So this is kind of where I've been sitting on this all day. I've been staring at a computer, writing code all day. And in the back of my mind, I've been trying to figure out if I was the Colts, how would I fix this situation? And the thing that I've come back to is the fact that the Colts don't need like Patrick Mahomes to make the playoffs. It certainly helps, but the Colts have one of the better defenses in the league and one of, if not the most talented running back in the league. Like they have a situation where they can pull a directly Kirk Cousins situation and make the playoffs and not have to worry about that.
That's for sure.
If I'm in a redraft league with Carson Wentz right now, I'm trying everything I can to get a replacement for him. Because if this comes out that he is gone for the first 3 weeks of the season, I don't think he has a ceiling above QB 20 this year.
No.
Like he's already behind the ball, learning the offense. He's already behind the ball, starting off as a QB in a new group. And he's going to be in a run-first offense that's going to be predicated on how well that defense is doing, which is going to do really well. So, nothing is working well for Carson Wentz in this situation before the injury. And I don't know how much things are going to fix that going forward.
So what are some options? Because I think that it's kind of the same guys. I'll throw out a few names. And I think realistically, the same names that you should be trying to put in a waiver claim, those are probably the same names that the Colts are looking at right now. So first off, we got Jacob Eason. That's Occam's razor. The solution is often the easiest solution. They took him in the 4th round last year. He did not draft on game days. He was coming in pretty raw. Big armed quarterback. I liked him a little bit out of Washington. He's the kind of quarterback I'd rather take a chance on. A guy that I think has a legitimate ceiling. But look, I have no idea what they see in Jacob Eason in practice since he's walked into Indianapolis. We have seen nothing from him. So, there's been a long time since we've last seen him chuck the football out in Washington. So I don't know. The Colts see him every day. They're going to see him a lot more in the next couple of weeks. He's going to be taking reps with the ones. We'll get some access. Shout out to my guy at FF Ball all day, Fantasy Scouts 24/7. He's going to be at Colts practice next week.
Ooh,
he can let us know how Jacob Eason looking slinging the rock. But beyond that, they got Sam Ehlinger that they took this year. Look, this team can make the playoffs. As Coach Bruce just said, Indy is still a playoff team if they get serviceable quarterback play. They're not playing the 7th round rookie this year. Get that out of your head. I don't care how he graded in your model. Other options. Look. Other options, Nick Foles, very obvious one. Here's the thing about NFL teams.
Here. Damn it.
Here's the thing about NFL teams. They actually like having good backups. So this idea that that NFL teams are run by fantasy GMs, and it's like, oh, we'll just take Gardner Minshew. Oh, we'll just take Jacoby Brissett. Actually, no. But with Foles, he's a 3rd stringer, right? They have Fields, they have Dalton. Foles isn't going to see the field anytime soon. No. He's got a big contract. If the Colts gave them the 7th round pick, I bet Chicago says, thank you very much. So Foles, I think, is the most obvious option. I think they might bring him in even if they want to play Jacob Eason. It really doesn't hurt them to do so. Brian Hoyer, I don't even know if he's on a team or if he's kicking around, but he's got a lot of experience in the Colts system. He might come in just to be a body. Jacoby Brissett, I just mentioned. I don't think the Dolphins would want to move him. I think the Dolphins probably like having a good backup behind Tua Tagovailoa, but he's certainly someone that I would bet the Colts would make a call about. Obviously, extremely experienced in the system. And then you look at the usual suspects, Jimmy Garoppolo, Marcus Mariota, I think 2 of the highest quality backups in the league, Case Keenum as well. I really doubt it. I think that these teams are happy to have those quarterbacks. They're probably going to want to keep them. But, if you're the Colts, you should make a call. And if any of them are floating around the waiver wire, they probably shouldn't be anyways, right? Those guys should probably have in your roster anyways because they might start games one day. That's kind of it for me. Is there anyone else that you would prioritize if you have some couple fab dollars to hang out to toss around?
Not really. I mean, Eason, I think, is the simplest choice. I think if I were the Colts, I wouldn't want to start Eason just because you are a playoff team. If you can get a quarterback who's not going to turn the ball over, I think you'll be happy with that offense. I think Nick Foles is a great option. I've seen some swirling rumors or some swirling discussions about going in and adding some of these QBs who have kind of fallen out of favor the last couple of years. Rosen is one that's getting talked about a lot. I don't like the idea.
Oh, I must have blocked all those people. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but if you can put him in and get serviceable play and he doesn't turn the ball over, Rosen kind of looked good in Miami the couple games he was playing. He just didn't have targets at that time. But he's not good at football.
Yeah, I'm cutting you off from Rosen. He used to play tennis. That's all we need to know. Yeah. How about Luke's question here? Which wide receivers hurt the most by Wentz's absence?
I think it's going to be Pittman. I think he's the closest thing they have to an alpha wide receiver. He's the closest thing to probably what was going to start taking the workload, the target share as a wide receiver in that offense. And he's not going to get that chemistry now in the preseason with Wentz. Maybe he's going to come back and he could be a late season detonation. He could absolutely explode later on. But right now, I'm almost completely out of that Colts receiving game.
My biggest take is all of them, and it's not just the wide receivers; it's also the running back. I am so sick. Okay, it is the worst take on Twitter. Every time a quarterback gets hurt, everyone's like, "This is great news for the running game." They're gonna have to. No, what are you talking about? That's the stupidest take. Were the Colts gonna really be so pass heavy that they weren't playing the run their offense through Jonathan Taylor before? What are you talking about? It's the Colts. They make run the damn ball hats. That's why I have my Twitter handles, RTDB. They're going to run the ball anyway. So this isn't anything. This is bad news for Jonathan Taylor. They're going to run the ball anyway. They're still going to run the ball. but now the defense knows they're going to run the ball. They already did.
Yeah.
But like you want a good quarterback because you want to be able to move the ball down the field because you want to score touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor getting enough carries, I don't think was the concern. Like he was going to get a lot of carries. It's bad for him. It's bad for Pittman. It's bad for Campbell. I think that the worst for me is Hilton. If I want to get really galaxy brain, I can make a case for Pittman that Pittman and Eason were in minicamp together last year as rookies. Eason's probably has the most rapport with Pittman out of any of those Colts wide receivers. Campbell, his role is going to be low ADOT, short stuff. I think he's the check down option. I don't think he'll be as affected quite as much. You're not really counting on touchdown production out of him anyway. I think the worst case, probably Hilton. He's the one running those deep routes. He would have zero rapport with Jacob Eason whatsoever. So, but it's a downgrade across the board. Quick shout out here, Real Reality FF. Just watch his best friend trade 3 first-rounders in Fant for Pitts. Don't worry, I'm sure your friend says that they're late first-rounders, so it'll all be good.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, they're all going to be late.
11, 12.
All right, here.
No one's good there.
That is pretty much where we're at here on the Carson Wentz portion of this podcast. When we come back, we're going to get into the main segment. We're going to start with some tales around the campfire to talk about what to do when it comes to training camp blurbs, everything coming up on your Roto World, how to keep track, what to ignore, what to keep track of. We'll be back just in a little bit. And welcome back everybody, to the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. I am your host here, Jacob Sanderson. Tom is out today. I'm here with Billy, and we are doing the Going Camping episode. We're going to start off with the main stuff right now going on. We're going to talk about training camp narratives, what to pay attention to, what to avoid. Let's just start generally. When it's training camp season, you're on the timeline. You see a bunch of videos. You see a bunch of sleeper alerts. You're getting the Roto World blurbs. Well, NBC Sports Edge blurbs. When you look at it, what is the way that you try to separate the important stories from the ones to ignore from, a strategic point of view?
My first thing is I look for definitives. I know it's very easy to look at the Carson Wentz thing now and say, this is what he's looking like. I don't buy into anything until I know Carson Wentz is going to miss the first month of the season. Carson Wentz is going to be back for week 1. Carson Wentz is only going to be out a week. Like, that's a lot of times what I end up looking for in some of these camp news blurbs. Anytime that I see a player who's like, this player looks like the best player in the team, ball hasn't touched the ground when it's thrown to him, all this stuff like that interests me. But it still has to be noted that these are the best athletes in the world at what they do. Mm-hmm. So in a training camp scenario where they are just practicing doing what they do, I don't expect the ball to touch the ground. You could put Drew Lock out there. I don't expect the ball to touch the ground. Like,
it doesn't. He throws it mostly to the other team.
He throws it up in the air. Like that's just what I expect. But when it's in situations where we're hearing like, this person is on the roster bubble and they were a potential like deep league sleeper this year, that's something that I want nothing to do with. Like one of the biggest ones right now is there's rumors going around that both of last year's Chargers backup running backs are on the roster bubble. Both Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly could potentially be looking at getting cut. That makes me want absolutely nothing to do with them right now. Like it
doesn't make you want to go buy Larry Roundtree?
Oh God, the man himself.
Have you heard that he has thick thighs?
Yes, he's an
that
NFL
didn't change
player.
your opinion of him?
I expect most of them to have thick thighs. When Giovanni Bernard is blowing up Twitter because he has quads, fucking like I expect him to. If he didn't, I would be disappointed. But like it's.
So you're looking for definitives. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I'm looking for things that we know. Like one of the biggest ones right now is, I feel like I'm scratching my nose a lot, is the Broncos running back situation.
Yeah.
Like we have gotten a lot of rumors swirling, but nothing definitive. Like, as soon as we start hearing, like, Broncos are unhappy with Melvin Gordon's contract, Broncos want him to rework it, something like that, I'll be all over Javonte Williams.
Right.
But right now, I'm still going to fade that for this season at least.
All right, that's because you're a man without a hat. No, like here's my heuristic on it. When it comes to young players, especially, because there's pretty much two things that we hear out of training camp regarding our favorite rookies, our favorite breakout candidates, right? Number one, we hear that they're incredible. We hear that they don't look like a rookie. But then we also hear they're running with the second team or they're running with the third team, right? And then everyone panics about that. Here's my two heuristics. Number one, if you hear good things about a player, you can pretty much ignore that. And if you hear bad things about a player, you should be legitimately concerned. Everyone looks great. Everyone looks awesome, right? Like you said, everyone
has big thighs.
All women want to be with them. All men want to be them. It's all beautiful and good. When you actually hear bad things about a player, that's when I start to actually get concerned. It's so rare that coaches actually talk badly about players during camp, that beat reporters talk badly about players during camp. If someone looks straight up bad, like, I'm not ignoring that. That actually seems pretty real to me. I actually react pretty heavily to that. And then my other heuristic is when it comes to the teams, it's the opposite. If a rookie's running with the second team early on, especially the first week of camp, I don't care. Like, coaches are a bunch of grumpy old men. They want to make people earn it. They hate the youth with their skinny jeans and their rock and roll. They're like, Elijah Moore, I don't care if you're the best player on our team. You're going to be on the second team and you're going to earn it because that's how I am. I'm a grumpy old man, and you have to earn it to show that, I don't know, you're manly enough or something. Mm-hmm. So that's how these teams operate. If a rookie's on the second team, you don't sweat it. Okay, Melvin Gordon's out of Javonte Williams. Yeah, look, we should have expected that Javonte Williams was going to be behind Melvin Gordon for the first week of training camp, right? We might even expect that week one. We're looking at what's going to happen week 1 of the season. We're looking at what's going to happen week 5 of the season. Most importantly, we're going to be looking what's happening week 15, 16, 17 of the season. So don't adjust based on someone running with the second team at camp. However, do adjust if veteran second-year players, if they're running with the second team, third team, that stuff does matter to me. And if rookies are running with the first team, then that definitely matters to me, because with rookies, it's usually a pretty linear ascent. If you start getting those first team reps early on in camp, like, now it's freewheeling to me. So people say Michael Carter's running with the first team. Right now, Trey Sermon's getting a lot of reps with the first team. That interests me quite a bit because to me, there's kind of only one way to go from there. So I do care about that. What's a training camp battle specific one that maybe a little bit off the radar, that's not like, the number one that every single person's talking about, that you're super, super interested in tracking the blurbs for every day that's going on?
Yeah, there's one deep league sleeper that I feel like a lot of people have been getting around on, and I want to credit you over here for starting up some of this buzz. Zach Moss. And
baby.
I want to follow when I'm talking about the camp battle between Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. I want to start off with this old adage that gets used a lot for quarterbacks, and I think it applies very well here in this situation. And it's, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 0. And I think that works very similar here in the situation where I think if Zach Moss wins that battle, he is the guy in Buffalo. Devin Singletary is a change of pace back. They'll bring him in to give Moss a break.
Although he's also slow, so it's actually a same pace back.
It's
it's
a worse pace. But
it's a change of size back.
Change of size, yeah. Less intimidating back. In those situations, I think if Zach Moss wins that, he is going to be extremely fantasy relevant as a deep league sleeper. I think if it's a situation where they're going in with a true RB by committee, I think it's worth nothing in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think there's enough of a pie there rushing wise to maintain 2 semi-fantasy relevant situations. So the thing I'm watching there is if Zach Moss continuously gets hyped up, and if we just don't hear anything about Singletary, he's just a guy who's there. Like, I think that's my favorite one to watch for this year.
I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, this is why I've been hyping Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is a guy. I don't think he's anything incredible, but like he's
words I've never said about him.
He's proficient in all avenues, right? Like he's big, and he can carry a workload. He's proven that in college. He can sort of kind of catch passes. So it's like, all right, he can absorb a workload between the 20s. He can take on the goal line work. He can stay out on third downs. And I'm like, all right, if anyone's going to step up, he can be that guy. He could be like a really, really poor man's David Montgomery, right? Whereas Singletary, it's like, we know that he isn't the guy. They keep telling us over and over again, accept it into your hearts. Like he had a chance to beat out Frank Gore, and he kind of sort of did, and then he didn't. And then they could have made him be the guy last year. They drafted Zach Moss. Zach Moss got hurt. They could have made him be the guy then. No, they were playing TJ Yeldon at the goal line. They're playing TJ Yeldon on third downs and pass protection. Like Devin Singletary is not the guy. So there's either no guy or Zach Moss is the guy. That's why you should buy Zach Moss. And if he's not the guy, then whatever. At least it's Zach Moss. They're not paying that much for Zach Moss. No one's like, oh my God, how dare you take Zach Moss from me? They're happy to trade you Zach Moss because nobody likes Zach Moss. I like that one quite a bit. The one I'm watching the most is the San Francisco 49ers running back battle, and not just at the top. I think everyone's focused on Mostert versus Sermon, and I'm definitely focused on Mostert versus Sermon, but I'm also really focused on who their RB3 is going to be. I'm looking at Wayne Gallman, and I'm looking at Elijah Mitchell. From what I'm reading, all four running backs are getting some reps with the first team right now, which is very Shanahanian. And like, to me, I'm very open to drafting up to 3 running backs in a best ball format. Like I'm very into Sermon. If he's in round 7, round 8, I'm open to taking some shots at that. Mostert's still too expensive for me, but he's falling in drafts quite a bit right now. I think if Sermon keeps getting hype, Mostert might fall to a round where I'm actually a little bit interested. And then I keep wanting to take a shot on that third guy in round 18 because I'm pretty sure that 2 guys are going to be viable out of this backfield. And if one gets hurt, then it's probably going to be Mitchell or Gallman. That's what I really want to track. Is Gallman's roster spot secure on this team? Is he secure as the RB3? Or is it possible that Mitchell usurps him? I'm going to be tracking heavily any buzz coming out of Niners camp on Gallman and Mitchell, as well as Mostert and Sermon. Any quick thoughts on that situation before we move in to Billy's Stat Corner? You're on mute.
Damn it. I have a loud keyboard over here. I try and be nice and make sure I'm not clicking on it while I'm working. But all this stuff. I think people are kind of forgetting just how good Raheem Mostert was last year.
Oh, my God.
In the time that he played, I mean, he averaged 65 yards per game when he was healthy. And a lot of those he left halfway through the game. So I think whoever is getting touches in that backfield is going to be valuable. So I completely agree that whoever the RB3 is needs to be drafted.
Absolutely. All right. We are going to take another very, very short break. When we come back, it's going to be time for Billy's Stat Corner. And look, last time was a big turning point. Billy was 8-0. Last time, Tom and I got it done. Now Tom has deserted me. So it's all up to me to take on Billy to keep our winning streak alive and push it to 2. We'll be back very, very shortly with Billy's Stat Corner.
Ooh. All right, I muted Discord perfectly during that break. I killed that. That was awesome. That was like Indiana Jones sliding under the door, grabbing the hat.
Wow, congratulations. I'm very, very proud of you, buddy.
Thank you.
You did a great job. All right, we are back here. I'm sorry. Look, I've been doing the best that I can here with these quick transitions. I forgot to make that one. So now we're here. We got this great screen going. We're good to go. All right, Billy, why don't you lead us off? Oh, sorry.
Right.
Just for anyone that's watching, if this is your first time, this is how we do it. Every week, we do something called Billy's Stat Corner. That is where Billy comes up with a stat for the week. It's usually a list of players of some sort. I have to guess, and usually myself and Tom have to guess. And we get 3 strikes, we get 1 hint. Okay, 3 strikes, we're out. Billy wins. If we get all of the names on the list before using up our strikes, then we win. Billy is up on us 8-1. So we got a long gap to close, but we are 1-0 in our last one. And I like to call that momentum. So, Billy, take it away.
All right. So, in 2019, Austin Eckler was the only person in a distinguished group that had 90 catches, 90 receptions, while gaining less than 1,000 yards. Players in this statistic are historically running backs. But interestingly, this last year, 4 wide receivers tested within this stat. And I know I like to go 3 usually, so I will give you a free one. Keenan Allen had 1 less yard than Austin Eckler last year while being in this metric. So we're going for the 3 that aren't Keenan Allen.
Okay, I was trying to quickly the stat here that this applies to.
So we're looking at players with more than 90 receptions.
Yeah.
Less than 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And they're all wide receivers.
Okay. Okay, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Are you locking that in?
Yeah, that has to be one.
Juju was the absolute worst.
Yeah.
Yes, he was one of them.
Yeah, Juju had less than 10 yards a catch, I think, right?
Less than. He had, hang on, let me boot up my TI-84 calculator. I did that fraction the wrong way. He had 8.5 yards per reception.
That's absolutely
That's pretty bad.
This is
out of 120 targets, 130.
You know what would have been a really interesting Billy stat corner, and this will soon be a Jacobs tweet, is how many quarterbacks averaged more yards per attempt than Juju had yards per catch.
That's. I bet I could pull that up while we're working.
All right, we're good. Okay, so we got one, and then Keenan was the freebie. I would have gotten Keenan anyways. You didn't need to give me that. All right, so that's. I
like keeping it at 3.
Yeah, then I wish you would have given me another one because I could have gotten Keenan for sure. All right, so I need 2 more, right?
Yep.
Okay, how about Bobby Trees?
Robert Woods is the other one, or one of the other ones.
Yeah,
he
baby.
Had 90 receptions on the dot for 936 yards.
Are you worried? Because I only need 1 left. I haven't used a single strike.
You got the 2 common ones.
Oh, I got the 2 common ones. Okay.
All right. The last one I didn't expect to be on this list.
Okay, let's think here. Let's think. Why don't you, can you vamp a little bit here while I'm trying to think?
Yeah, so I'm trying to pull up this stat while we're working. For those of y'all who are wondering where I get all these stats, one of my favorite websites out there right now is called StatMuse, where it's an AI and you can just type in questions and it feeds you all these. So this is kind of what started me down this cycle. But yeah, Robert Woods and Juju Smith-Schuster were woefully inefficient last year, which I mean, kind of from the way they play the game is kind of what you expect. Robert Woods is consistently a PPR guy. So long as he's getting those receptions, that's good for him. Juju, I mean, we can only talk so nice about him in this situation.
I've never talked nice about him.
Yeah, I mean, Juju is one of a kind. Like, Juju is... I was trying to get a hint, and I was hoping you got the other 2, because I was just going to give you the win and say.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't even have to guess. I was just like Juju. Okay, yeah. I think I have a guess for another one. Right. How about Robbie Anderson?
Robbie Anderson is not on the list. That was a good guess.
What was his line?
I can pull that up real quick if you continue to vamp while I type this out.
Okay, so here's some folks that I'm thinking of for the people at home. By the way, if you're in the chat, help me out. I don't have a teammate today, so you are my teammate, okay?
Robbie had more than 1,000 yards last year. So
you must have been close.
1,096.
Okay, pretty close. All right, here's where I'm thinking right now. Look, we need to have guys that caught a lot of balls. So Deontay immediately entered my brain, but he didn't finish that many games. So I'm not 100% sure that he actually got that many. Curtis Samuel's an interesting one, Luke Veer. I'm not sure that he caught 90 balls, but that is actually a very good guess. I might return to that. Tyler Boyd is definitely a guy that I'm thinking of. He seems like he would fit this description, but I feel like it's not going to be that obvious. So another guy I'm definitely considering is Cole Beasley. And then, man, I'm not...
While we're vamping, only Deshaun Watson had a better yards per pass attempt than Juju last year.
Okay, that's fine. I will take that.
If you go back to 2019, Ryan Tannehill is up there. But
God bless Ryan Tannehill.
Our hero.
Okay, so I got one strike, and I have one to go. I'm going to guess one more, and then I'm going to consider using a hint. Should I trust? Okay, I'm going to just trust Luke Veer, and I'm going to use his answer, and then I'm going to trust my gut for the final one if he's wrong. So how about Curtis Samuel? I'll stay with the Panthers.
Curtis Samuel is not on the list. I believe he didn't make the receptions.
That's what I figured.
He only had 77.
That's what I thought. All right, okay, what's the hint here before I give my last guess?
All right. So 2 of these players, you already got one, were both drafted in the 2017 draft class.
Oh, okay.
So that really stacked wide receiver draft class.
2017 draft class. Okay, so it could be Chris Godwin, could be Allen Robinson.
No. Allen Robinson was drafted in 2014.
Wait, that's the wrong stacked draft class. That's fine. Okay. So
Chris Godwin was 2017.
Yeah, so it could be Chris Godwin. Okay, who else is in that dumb 2017 class? Oh, that's the Juju class.
Yes. So
that probably is the Boyd class. I think that Boyd's in that class. I think that.
Oh, I was one off. Never mind.
Is it 2016?
2018 was the one that had Sutton, DJ Moore, Ridley. He's still in 2017. He's still in 2017.
Okay. This guy's in 2017.
Yes.
You're not lying.
Just checked it. His link is purple on PFR because I clicked on this to make sure that's correct.
All right. Well, I'm pretty sure this guy was drafted in the 2017 class. He seems like he would fit this description, but I'm a little scared that I'm going to be wrong because it seems too obvious. All right, buddy. Look, you won me a DFS tournament. However, I still continue to slander you online all the time. I'm going to lock in Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd is not on the list.
Oh, no.
Tyler Boyd, I believe he was 2016. No. I can check that just to be sure.
That's fine. That's
2016 NFL draft.
Oh, no. Who is it?
The last one was surprisingly Cooper Kupp.
Oh, I was thinking about him, but I figured it wouldn't be both Rams guys.
Had 92 receptions and 970 yards.
Why is that surprising? That one's not surprising. I thought Kupp.
Cooper Kupp is a deep ball guy. He's down
the
field. That's
what do you mean? He's like a MAGA white dude. He looks like me.
Well, he's losing. He lost it with Jared Goff. He doesn't look like you. But
oh my gosh.
Just watch it this year.
Boo, he's not a deep ball guy. His ADOT's lower than Woods. Unbelievable. All right, I'm playing the rest of this under protest. That was lame. All right. Congratulations, Billy. 9-1. I had such a head start. I had them all except for one, and then I blew 3 strikes. That was big choke job by your guy. Look, we're going to come back. We have some fun stuff to stay in the going camping. First off, we're going to tell some ghost stories when we come back. We're going to talk about our previous training camp haunts. So look, if you have any preseason or training camp darlings that you fell in love with that hurt you on an emotional level, okay, make sure to share them in the comments and embrace the pain with us. We will be right back in just a little bit.
Damn it. I was trying to find a book.
Not enough time for the books, Billy. All right.
I was digging through my drawer.
Let's get into this with the ghost stories, okay? We're going to talk about a time that you fell in love with someone from either training camp beat reports or preseason games. Now that player still haunts you to this day. Billy, gather us around the fire, okay? Prepare us, turn off the lights, and let us know your ghost story.
All right, come here, children. Come here. Let me tell you the story about.
No, I didn't say sexual assault story. That was
all right. Moving on from that bit. So the way I got into fantasy, I played fantasy for a very long time before I started getting into it, like following it really hard. And one of the first seasons where I was super like following draft class, everything was 2018. And there was this quarterback in 2018 who he got drafted very high, very, very high.
Can I guess this? Does this give you the stat corner win?
Sadly, you already know it. It's on the show sheet. But in this case, he was drafted very high, and I didn't think he deserved to go that high. And in my head, I told myself that NFL GMs know better than I do. They do, but
Gettleman doesn't.
This was my justification in this case. And it was Daniel Jones. And while I was looking at this, while I was waiting for this, Daniel Jones went into the preseason and went absolutely nuts. Went crazy. His very first game went out 5 for 5, 67 and a touchdown. Ran a 70-yard drive, ball didn't touch the ground. Went out the next week, 2 70-yard drives, ball didn't touch the ground, and a touchdown. He's absolutely on fire. And here's my favorite stat about this, is Daniel Jones' preseason quarterback rating was 132.8. Absolutely mint. There very few QBs touch that like consistently. Daniel Jones has not once recorded a single game QB rating of 132.8. He hasn't even pushed into the 130s in his entire 2 years. So the entire preseason, it was my first Dynasty league. I'm like, I got to go out and get this guy in rookie drafts. I need to make trades for this dude. He's extremely exciting. My home leagues, I'm like, Daniel Jones is my late round QB. All this stuff. He's going to sit on my bench. Eli's going to retire. Then I get to put in Eli Light, and I'll be good. And he just sucked. He just was ass. He was butt. And just is not good. And part of me still holds out hope for Daniel Jones that he can turn it around and figure out whatever is haunting him in that backfield. But as of right now, I'm willing to classify him in my ghost stories. So, Jacob, hold that flashlight below your face, and why don't you give us yours?
Man, that sucks about Daniel Jones. Look, hey, some people aren't giving up on Daniel Jones. He's still got some weapons. I just want to shout out to Luke Verrier saying, carry on, R.I.P. Yeah. Carry on my wayward son. I remember listening to the fantasy footballers back that preseason when everyone was typing up carry on Johnson, and now he's a one-legged ghost, sadly. We're going around in Philadelphia. Look, I have a slightly more demonic take on a ghost story, right? There's multiple types of horror movies, right? You talk about ghosts, you talk about demons, right? And there's a very, very famous story, okay, called The Inferno, right? In which there are 9 circles of hell, and in which people are continually trapped in a punishment befitting of their crimes, right? This is, of course, Dante's Inferno. And so I want to bring myself back to the 2019 offseason when I was grinding beat reports in Pittsburgh. I was making deals. Antonio Brown had just left the Steelers, okay? Juju Smith-Schuster was stepping in the wide receiver 1 role. They had James Washington. They had Deontay Johnson, who was just a 3rd-round rookie at that point. We didn't know anything about him. There was no Mapletron. But they had just brought in someone who had a sterling production profile coming out of college. He went to Indianapolis, and he flashed. He had a few good moments, but he never could put it all together. Incredible athleticism. And I said, this is going to be his shot. That guy, of course, named after the Inferno, is Dante Moncrief. Dante Moncrief was getting hyped up like there was no tomorrow. I remember he was going in round 7, round 8 in drafts. And in fact, I even had a trade deal that offseason where I was trying to acquire Matt Ryan. And I was like, man, I think my side's worth a little bit more. You need to give me Dante Moncrief in this deal. And that person said, no, I won't give you Dante Moncrief. I will not give you Dante Moncrief. The deal's off. He ended up finally figuring it out. It ended up being I got a 2021 second-round pick. Or 2020 second-round pick. That turned into Brian Edwards, who, of course, was his own training camp ghost story. Look, so what happened with Dante Moncrief? Well, he comes out. In week 1, he plays 90% of the snaps in 2019's week 1. That's what you want to see. He is a wide receiver too. He gets 10 targets, and he turned that into 3 catches and 7 yards, and he was entirely benched literally 2 weeks later, and he just got cut by the Houston Texans. Dante Moncrief, if you came out once again in the draft, I would draft you again and again and again. I still love your prospect profile. I still love you, and I still love your goatee. But now you are officially a ghost story, Dante Moncrief, and will always remind us to avoid the deadly sins of fantasy football. Now, let's quickly roast some marshmallows, okay? We're going to look at the other side of things. We've been talking about stories that come out, which ones you care about, which ones you ignore. We're going to roast marshmallows. We're going to take a few stories that people have been crafting ever so delicately, right? They've been presenting them to you, and you are going to chuck it right on the fire. What is the story coming out of training camp so far that you are comfortable entirely ignoring?
Yeah, I got one that's kind of bugging me because I've seen some people on Twitter being like, the NFL was right. The NFL nailed it. The NFL was taking these QBs ahead of him. They were on the money. Smart move. And it's this news coming out that Justin Fields looks like the second best quarterback in Chicago. And 100%, I think we all need to meet our expectations. We all need to take a second, take a deep breath, open up headspace, listen to some rain sounds, do some meditation, focus on the breath, and realize that rookie QBs are rookie QBs. We have been so spoiled with QBs in the last couple of years with the likes of Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow when he was healthy, but in those situations, like we have been so spoiled with these young QBs coming out and looking like $1 million that one bad beat on Justin Fields, people are acting like it's the end of the world. And Andy Dalton's going to start this whole year. Andy Dalton is not going to start this whole year. You can mark my words on that. We can timestamp this, play it at the end of the year, whatever. But in those situations, things we need to figure out is how to avoid like overreacting to things that we expect. And we need to expect these rookie QBs are going to have some growing pains when it comes to the NFL. We've seen it with many QBs the last couple of years. Tua, I think, is one of the greatest ones. Granted, he was coming off of a potentially like ability to walk saving surgery. But like I feel like we need to meet our expectations on these QBs a little bit. So that's why some of the hate that's coming out on Justin Fields, I'm not worried about it. Also, real quick, while I'm talking about Bears camp, Darnell Mooney looks like $1 million out there. So y'all enjoy that.
Yeah, Darnell Mooney. I don't even know what to say about Darnell Mooney. Look, it's going to be an insufferable experience for me if Darnell Mooney is good, because I'm out here like chirping Darnell Mooney stands on Twitter any chance I get, which is often because there's so freaking many of you deluded, crazy people. And sure enough, like the freaking leader of the Darnell Mooney fan club is right next to me every Friday. So if Darnell Mooney does something other than juke D-backs on incomplete passes this year, then I'm going to be living in one of the 9 circles of hell from Darnell's Inferno.
That's what I was going to say is if he sauces Jalen Ramsey week 1, fantasy Twitter is going to fucking crash. Okay,
but what if it's like, could it be a complete pass this time? Am I not allowed to get excited about complete passes? Why do we care so much about winning routes on
Sure, that's fine. We just saw like a 5th round rookie sauce the Madden 99 club. Like
how did I complete pass? Okay, what's more aggravating? What's more aggravating? Twitter getting really hyped by Darnell Mooney saucing Jalen Ramsey on an incomplete pass, or CeeDee Lamb making a ridiculous catch on an incomplete pass? Which one do you care about more? Although you love both these guys, so you're probably just give it all to me. Give it all to me.
You put me in a rock and a hard space.
All
right, let's move on to your one because I like your guy.
Yeah. Okay. So story I'm ignoring. Look, Sammy Watkins, strong starter, right? Like comes out week 1, and the Lizard is strong. We know this every year. And apparently this now transpires training camp. Greg Roman said that Sammy Watkins, a.k.a. the Lizard King, a.k.a. playoff hero, is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, which is pretty rich. This is pretty ridiculous. Sammy Watkins is very clearly the third best wide receiver on the Ravens. Maybe you can read into this and be like, okay, maybe then Rashad Bateman is going to run a few less routes in week 1. Maybe Tylan Wallace won't run routes at all. Maybe Miles Boykin is still as bad as we know he is. But this really goes to all of these veteran wide receivers. Be it Keelan Cole, be it Sammy Watkins. Look, these guys have been through it. And especially some of these veterans that are on a 1-year contract, they've been through a training camp. These guys know how to handle a training camp. These guys know what they're doing. When you motivate these guys, when these guys are playing for their jobs, when they're playing for their NFL careers, is it that shocking that they can turn it on and look more polished, look better for a week than a rookie in their first ever training camp who are totally overwhelmed by the fans, by the playbook, by other players, by dudes they've been used to play with on Madden? It shouldn't surprise anybody. Just trust what you've seen on the field. Trust what teams have done, right? The teams drafted these rookies for a reason, to replace these washed up dud ass vets. These players are on 1-year contracts for a reason. So that's the big thing. Whenever you see these vets getting hyped up, the incumbent bias and the veteran bias that comes out of beat reports, that comes out of team statements, it's huge. It's how they motivate these players. The beat reporters often have relationships with these incumbents. They want to say good things about these incumbents that have given them access over the years. So this is about Sammy, but it even spans a little bit wider. Whenever you hear this, just ignore it. Just ignore it. These things too shall pass. Should it maybe make you slightly more likely to draft a Sammy Watkins or an AJ Green at the very end of your best ball draft? Sure. Okay, that's fine. Go for it. But, Rashad Bateman's going to be fine, guys. He's going to play this year. He's awesome.
I think the best case in this is I think Tylan Wallace is going to be a screaming value next year.
Sure, I guess. It's the third wide receiver on the Ravens. Is that interesting?
Probably not, but I mean, if he can show out and earn some opportunity, hell yeah, give me that athletic rookie.
I'm into it. I like Tylan Wallace. I love Tylan Wallace. He was one of my favorite guys before the draft. I was a little bummed out with where he landed. Let's go in here to our last segment so that I can say, screw you, Tom. We actually finished on time. For this last segment here, we're going to make s'mores. We are going to make s'mores. And that means we're going to talk about training camp stories that have actually affected our rankings. So training camp stories that we think actually matter. Billy, why don't you go first? What's one thing that we've heard that truly is changing your mind on something, especially in the Dynasty perspective?
All right. I kind of did a bad job reading this prompt because I think my rankings will be exactly the same at the end of this situation. But I do have a little bit of commentary on it, and it's Dak Prescott. It's Dak Prescott. In case y'all haven't seen, Dak has been a little bit beaten up in training camp. He's left the field a couple times, which just seems to be the theme in Cowboys camp. It seems like
how about the Colts camp, right, bro? Now.
A lot of people are on the pup. Devontae Parker is on the pup, and I don't think anyone's even mentioned it.
There's more pups at Colts camp than a frickin' off-leash park. That joke would have been so good if I didn't stop, have a stroke in the middle of it.
If you couldn't come up with off-leash. But in that case, so the Dak situation is, I think, at this point, the fact that Dak is still a little beaten up in camp, and there's situations where they're saying he's running off the field, his leg is a little bit shaken up. I am not going to take Dak, 3 ranks down in Dynasty. I'm not going to throw him down my board. But what I am going to do is I'm going to start looking at players that are in the same tier above him. He may jump a tier down, I think is what we're looking at in Dynasty. Is if this is going to be something that's going to nag him, and I always play Dynasty for the near future, if this is something that's going to be nagging him, then I think it's absolutely a situation where you can sit back, relax, and consider taking other players above him. Some of the younger talent that's coming out, I think if you are in love with a prospect or a player that's come out in the last 2 years, Herbert, Burrow, Lawrence, if you're one of those people who are I need Dynasty and I'm drafting this team for the next 20 years, if you're one of those players and you're I'm going to take him over Dak, I don't like it. I wouldn't do it, but I understand what you're doing. So I think in this situation, this injury has just made me go, all right, in startup drafts, I would take Lamar over Dak right now. Or I would take some other player that's around that tier above him.
That makes a lot of sense. I'll talk about one here. Look, I am making a new ghost because I'm declaring death. You don't have to go. I'll watch you here, buddy. You need to hear this.
I know what's coming.
You're dressed in Baylor green and gold. You got to hear this one, baby.
Hey, whoa. We're leaving Baylor out of this.
I am pronouncing death. I am performing an autopsy. Dong, 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 dong. Denzel Mims is dead. I'm sorry. Look, I liked Denzel Mims too. I liked him a lot in the 2020 class. He was one of my favorite wide receivers, the 2020 class. I thought he was undervalued. I had him on teams, okay? Then what happened? What happened is he started off injured. He didn't impress in camp last year. He ended up getting on the field towards the latter half of last year. Didn't really produce. No one really blamed him for it. No one really should have blamed him for it. He didn't get much of a chance, and he had a pretty good role. There were reasons to be somewhat optimistic going into the offseason with Denzel Mims. Then what happened? They signed Corey Davis, who looks and plays like Denzel Mims. And then they signed Keelan Cole, who plays the position of Denzel Mims. And then they drafted Elijah Moore, who plays the position of Denzel Mims. And then they were like, Jamison Crowder, please don't leave us. Please don't leave us. Look, if after the Jamison Crowder restructure, you didn't already sell all of your Denzel Mims shares, I don't know what to tell you. You're probably bad at Dynasty. But maybe you still had hope. I don't know. I guess you might have still had hope. But Denzel Mims was a year one non-producer. They went out. They took 3 new players to come out and replace him. All they lost was Prashad Perriman. So it's a net 2 added after they just took him in the second round. They had a whole new coaching staff. The whole new coaching staff said how they're going to make this offense about players who win in space, players who win after the catch. That's not Denzel Mims' game. Denzel Mims' game is a post-up, outside wide receiver, classic wide receiver game. He's got more speed to the outside than maybe people think. But he's still that outside clasher type wide receiver. He's not that yak guy. He's not an Elijah Moore. He's not a Jamison Crowder type. And they already have Corey Davis to come in and play the X. So the signs were on the wall. Then he comes in. Look, guys, they're playing Keelan Cole ahead of him, not to send him a message, not because he's a rookie. He's not a rookie. He's been on the Jets longer than Keelan Cole. There's no good reason. The only reason, like Lord William of Ockham, said that the assumption that requires, or the hypothesis that requires the least amount of assumptions to be true probably is. And the hypothesis that requires the least assumptions is that the Jets think Keelan Cole's better than Denzel Mims because Denzel Mims isn't very good. He's not good. People are like, oh man, it might not work on the Jets, but you got to trust the talent. What talent? Second round picks bust all the time. Denzel Mims was a second round pick. I thought he was good. He's not. He busted. It's done. Pronounce him dead. If you can get a third-round pick for Denzel Mims, do that. I would rather have KJ Hamler than Denzel Mims. Today he came out. He's going down to the third team. Oh, they're trying to send him a message. Send him a message. What's the message? We're going to cut you? Like, I don't know what the message needs to be sent. The message has been sent loud and clear to Dynasty managers by Raven, by Telegraph, by phone call, by video conference, that Denzel Mims is not good. And I know that you think he's good because you're still watching Baylor highlights, because you're still looking at the spreadsheet that tells you he's good. And that spreadsheet says the same things to me. But the Jets see him every day, and they've decided, you're not good, you're not playing, we don't want you. And it's not because they're dumb, it's because he's bad. And Denzel Mims may get cut, he may get traded, he may stay with the Jets. But wherever he goes, the odds are that he will be bad because that's what he is. He's a bust. It's done. Move on from Denzel Mims.
All right. I didn't want to interrupt you because you were on a roll there. Couple things. One, that was 2 Occam's razors in a podcast.
Tom's not here. I'm allowed to say Occam's razors anytime so.
We're thinking. Also, you know when you create a player in a video game and it like fills the name for you, and it's like, oh, your default point is this name. Yeah. Denzel Mims is lining up next to that guy and Jeff Smith, and then a 1980s WWE wrestler and Lawrence Kager. Like, it's, I don't know who he's playing with, and if this doesn't send a message, like, it's done. Like, it's really sad. I will go out and I'll pick him up for dirt cheap.
Sure.
But he's like just the athletic profile is what gets him by. Like
Love
his college prospect athletic profile looks amazing. It
Love
is extremely possible, and at this point, almost probable that he's just not an NFL player.
Yeah,
and that
it's
hurts.
okay.
And it's okay.
Sometimes we bust. Sometimes you're
in the 99.
Sometimes you're JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
He's in the 99.99 percentile of athletes in the world. Like he's an absolute monster. Also,
I would take him on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers any day.
He could not be an NFL starter right now. So, or an NFL bench player, apparently. So, like that's
Jeff Smith.
At this point, like, I guess I'm going out and putting down $1 bid on Lawrence Kager.
I went to some frat parties in college. They had a few Lawrence Kagers.
Yeah, I know, like 3 Lawrence Kagers. I take fucking Biz 101 with them.
Yeah, I'll sit next to Jeff Smith in my tax law class too, and invite him in and see if he wants to buy my Denzel Mims shares.
Lawrence Kager is trying to pump and dump a fucking cryptocurrency on Twitter right now.
Yeah, and you know who is cryptocurrency? Denzel Mims is, in fact, cryptocurrency. All right, Billy, it has been fun. Where can we find you?
All right, you can find me on Twitter at BigBillyFF. I'm going to start posting what I call the Preview 22 series on the Full Tilt Dynasty website, where I'm going to start going over some of the 2022 draft class. And hopefully, as the college season progresses, we're going to start talking about some of the more interesting ones. You can also start catching some of my results coming from my projections model that I built up. It's not going to take me an entire summer to build next time. I just got to change inputs. So we're going to keep running that throughout the year. We're going to get some interesting stuffs out of that, baby. Jacob, why don't you plug your stuff?
Absolutely. First off, I just want to speak for Tom quick. You can find him on the Dynasty Brothers podcast on August 8th. He'll be making the rounds on a couple different shows going on next week. You can find me on August 4th. That's Wednesday. Talking Colts. I will be on my first edition to a Colts podcast. So I'll have more details out for you after that. And then you can also find my written work up on playerprofiler.com. My full series is now complete on lessons to learn from DFS to best ball tournaments. That is all up on playerprofiler.com. You can find me on Twitter, FF_RTDB. You can find me every Tuesday co-hosting Dynasty Intervention with Chase Vernon and Shane Manila, and of course here every Friday. And the most important thing, next week, you will not find us on Friday at 6. You will find us on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time, where we will be doing a special Saturday edition of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast with Matt Kelly, a.k.a. Fantasy_Mansion, a.k.a. the Podfather, a.k.a. the Colossus. It will be a very, very fun episode. We're going to be going hype all day with the Podfather for a little day edition. I might have a little bit of mimosas going that I'll be cracking out for the Podfather. Maybe we'll talk a little bit of Denzel Mims. We'll probably talk through the latest training camp news. We will definitely have a Mansion versus RTDB segment ready to go. Where we will talk about Michael Thomas. Billy, this is your chance to exact your revenge from when I beat you on a Michael Thomas segment earlier. Now that Michael Thomas is injured, I'm still buying Michael Thomas. The Podfather is way out on Michael Thomas. We will settle that in the court of law in Mansion versus RTDB. So make sure to check in next week. That's again Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time, with Tom, with me, with Billy, and with the Podfather. All right, we will see you next week. Have a lovely day. I'm not Tom, so I'm not going to go tell you to be positive and do nice things. I'm just going to tell you to stop posting stupid shit on Twitter, like Gardner Minshew's good and Denzel Mims is talented. Have a lovely weekend, and I hope that you're getting half as drunk as I am on an island in Lake of the Woods. God bless.
Goodbye. Or we're still here.